For brown stew chicken, I really love using dark meat. Chicken breast is great too, but legs, thighs and even wings are much harder to overcook and have much richer flavors. In a classic brown stew, the meat was always cut into bite-sized pieces. That way, a lot more of the flavor infuses into the gravy. Brown stew is closely tied to Jamaica's African heritage. Even today, similar stews are made in West and Central Africa. It took African traditions and blended them with indigenous ingredients like allspice and used sugar, which was readily available, to brown the meat and create rich caramelized flavors. This technique isn't just great for chicken, it was traditionally used for tougher cuts of meat like oxtail to make them tender and packed with flavor. Brown stew can also be adapted for more tender proteins like fish, where the cooking time is much shorter, but you still get those delicious deep flavors. The rich browning and the spices work beautifully with fish, giving you that same bold, comforting taste without the longer cooking process. It's a great way to enjoy the essence of brown stew while keeping it light and quick. Once I've chopped up the chicken, I can go ahead and season it with some black pepper and salt. Now, let's talk about green seasoning. I've got a detailed guide on making it and it's definitely worth a watch. It's one of my more entertaining videos. Green seasoning is simply a blend of fresh local herbs and spices. Traditionally, these were chopped and added to the chicken to marinate it, but with this season, you get all those flavors in one go. A couple tablespoons should work, but you can always add a little extra without causing any harm. Up next is the browning. Now, there are a few different ways to approach this. For this recipe, I made homemade browning the traditional way. Alternatively, you can purchase commercial browning, but there are some important differences. Both will color your meat, but that's probably where the similarities end. I've linked a video where I deep dive into those differences. Definitely check it out if you're interested. Another technique is caramelizing the sugar directly in the oil before adding the chicken. This method can give great results, but it requires some skill and finesse to get it just right every time. For consistency, the most reliable method to achieve the perfect color and flavor is homemade browning. It's incredibly simple, just a cup of brown sugar and half cup of water. On medium-low heat, start with the brown sugar in a stainless steel pan. Next, simply let it melt and start to caramelize. Use low heat for better control. Eventually the sugar will get frothy and start to smoke. The aim is to achieve a deep brown, almost black color. As soon as the perfect color is achieved, simply kill that heat and add the half cup of water. As soon as the sugar is completely dissolved, remove from the fire and cool. Unlike commercial browning, homemade browning adds not only color but complex flavors and smoky notes. A couple big drizzles is enough to achieve the flavor and color that browning is known for. Yes, homemade browning is really great. Give the chicken a mix to distribute everything and introduce all those flavors. This could probably take another drizzle of browning. If I was using the store-bought stuff, I would have to make it a lot darker than I have it here. With homemade browning, the chicken gets progressively darker as it cooks. That color is perfect. Next, I'm going to let this marinate in the fridge for a few hours. 30 minutes to 1 hour is enough to get those flavors going, but ideally overnight is best for the deepest flavors. I don't recommend marinating for more than 24 hours, especially if your marinade has a lot of acid like lime juice or vinegar. Too much acid can degrade the meat and change its texture, making it mushy instead of tender. Next up, we have to brown the meat. This step adds that extra depth of flavor and enhances the texture of the skin. Start with a splash of oil in a hot pan on high heat. Then add the pieces of chicken, making sure the skin makes contact with the pan for that rich caramelized finish. A key reason for browning the chicken, especially with the skin on, is to also slightly change the texture. Since most people aren't fans of soft chicken skin in stews, browning helps crisp it up and creates a more appealing texture in the finished dish. Once the chicken is sufficiently browned, we can go ahead and remove them. Next, add 1 sliced onion, about a tablespoon of chopped garlic, 1 scotchy for some early heat, about 2 sprigs of chopped scallion, 1 diced carrot, keep it moving so we don't burn anything, and 1 diced potato. By the end of the stew, the potato and carrot will partially break down, adding flavor, texture and thickening the brown stew gravy. Once the vegetables are properly browned, add back the brown chicken along with all the marinade and resting juices. That smells amazing. Homemade browning gives this a distinct sweet aroma that I really love. Next, add a splash of soy sauce and a splash of ketchup. Traditionally, fresh tomatoes would be sauteed with the other veggies to give the stew great texture and flavor. Tomatoes currently cost more than chicken and other meat, so I'm using tomato ketchup as a more economical substitute. It still provides the acidity needed to enhance all the flavors. Then add water. I rinsed out the bowl to capture all the flavors left behind. You could also use chicken stock for a more savory kick. This won't take long to cook, so be conservative with the liquid. That's probably about 1.5 cups to 2 cups of water. Finally, cover and let it simmer until the chicken is tender. This usually takes around 30 minutes. What's your favorite side to have with brown stew chicken? Drop a comment down below. Once the chicken is tender, we can go ahead and re-season the stew. Add a bit of chopped scallion, half an onion sliced, fresh thyme and sliced sweet pepper. Adding fresh veggies like these at the end of the stew gives a fresh layer of flavor over the mature stewed flavors, making for a much more delicious dish. And that is it. One delicious pot of old-time brown stew chicken. This recipe brings back nostalgic memories from my childhood. You can leave the chicken in whole pieces instead of chopping it up. It actually cuts the prep time down significantly. If you try this recipe, come back and let me know how it turned out. I love to hear about any modifications you made and your overall experience. Brown stew chicken has an intense, rich and savory flavor, and it's a long-time favorite for good reasons. I'm serving this with some delicious gungo rice and peas. Check out the recipe linked in the description. If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting my work on Patreon. All content is free and you can pledge as little as $1. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.